the judge that was pushing to keep me there and retry me was the daughter of the judge that initially sentenced me to death. They were trying to break my will and want me to plead to a sentence that I was refusing to plead to. I was not going to plead to anything. You was going to murder me or you going to free me. And that was my stance.
Welcome to the fourth part of my interview with Anthony Graves. It's the final part, the end of the story, not the beginning, so don't start here. I told you there would be an incredible twist at the end, and believe me, there will be. In 1992, an entire family was killed in a little town of Texas. 4 children, 1 teen and 1 adult. Anthony Graves was arrested a few days later. Why? Because a man, Robert Carter, claimed that he had done the killings with him. In reality, they didn't know each other. Anthony thought that he would be released by the police after being questioned. Right now, at this point of the story, we are 13 years later, and he's still in prison. Actually, in March 2006, he's on death row, and the Fifth Circuit overturns his trial, but he's not released. It's not the end of the story at all. It took 5 months before they moved you to the county jail.
Yes.
What was it like to be in this new jail?
It was another adjustment. It was still jail though, right? The food was different. It was jail food and not prison food, right? I was getting more, the chicken was real chicken and not a chicken patty. But I was also isolated because I was the only person in the jail with a capital case. So nobody else could be around me. They put me in a cell behind steel double doors. Steel double doors. And for the next 4 years and 3 months, that's how I had to live by myself, recreate by myself, eat by myself, go to visitation by myself. They totally ostracized me in this jail because they was trying to break my will to live. Because they kept coming to me trying to get me to take a deal, and I was refusing. I was telling them, you're gonna kill me or you're gonna free me. That's not gonna be no compromise. And so that's why I stayed 4 more years and 3 more months. Because they was just trying to break my will to live.
What happened is that the state of Texas had 180 days to retry you or release you. They scheduled a hearing just before that deadline in September 2006. And you realized that this is just an excuse.
Yeah, well, you're gonna try an innocent man on. And the judge that was pushing to keep me there and retry me was the daughter of the judge that initially sentenced me to death. And she was going against the court order, the court ruling about perjured testimony, Mr. Carter's testimony. She was ruling that she was gonna allow it back in on another trial. But he's dead. How are you gonna cross-examine him? And they told you that it was perjured testimony, but you're gonna let it back in because you're trying to reconvict an innocent man. So I sit back there 4 years and 3 more months with this whole notion of going back to trial, only because they were trying to break my will and want me to plead to a sentence that I was refusing to plead to. I was not gonna plead to anything. You was gonna murder me or you gonna free me. And that was my stance. Your lawyer, Nicole Casares, she does an incredible job. Can you tell us a little bit about that job? How can you work on a case so many years after the events? Nicole was a journalist at a university. And Nicole found out about my case because she attended a death penalty symposium. And they were talking about my case being on the fast track to execution, but it had never been investigated. Her and her students were there. And Mr. Dow, who was running the symposium, had asked the audience if anyone of them would like to look into this case. Just not to work it, but just to look into the case. and Nicole and her students was there. And she looked around, according to her, and nobody raised their hand. So she looked at her students, and her students looked at her, and they all raised their hand together. Their hand raising was the beginning of changing my life, changing my faith, and getting me back home. Because after she raised their hand, they started looking into my case for 2 years before they even come talk to me. I didn't even know this. And when they came talk to me, asking me what did I want to say to them, the first thing I said to her was, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that I'm innocent. Because so many people say that. So now when you do say it, it's marginalized. People say, yeah, they all say that. So it makes a person who's innocent, makes him feel a certain way by trying to convince you that he's innocent. But I know if they do the work, they'll find out that I'm innocent. And that was my first conversation that I had with Nicole. And she told me she already knew that I was innocent. They had been working on my case. And that began a great friendship. Yeah, and she saved my life, man. She saved my life.
4 years after the beginning of the trial, on October 2010, you learned that the DA took an incredible decision.
October 27th, 2010, I'm sitting in my cell. Well, I've already had up to about several different prosecutors come on the case, get off the case. Many attorneys come on the case, get off the case. Nobody wanted to acknowledge the truth. Everybody wanted to kick the can down the road until the next prosecutor. Well, they kicked the can down to this prosecutor named Miss Kelly Siegler. Matter of fact, she has a TV show called Cold Case. That was my prosecutor. She had put 19 men on death row, more men than most states, and they had hired her to put me back on death row. This was a blessing in disguise for me, because this is going to be the first time that somebody was going to investigate the case to see what was happening. Miss Siegler spoke with me after this was over with, and she said to me, Anthony, they hired me to come back and put you back on death row. They gave me 25 boxes of what they called evidence. I sat in my front room with all of those boxes, and I went through each piece of paper. And not one piece of paper linked you to this case. I went from, how can I try this case, to, oh my God, this man is innocent. But I did not want to stop there. This is her talking to me. So I had 5 investigators on this case. I called each one in, one at a time, to ask them, what did they think about this case? Mr. Graves, each one of my investigators said, this man is innocent. So after that, I moved to go to I created a dismissal order to go to the judge and have them sign it to release you. The judge was refusing. So much so that we had to threaten to go to the media and let the media know that she was holding an innocent man if she didn't let you go. That's how she ended up signing the order. So on that day, while I'm in my cell, an officer come to my cell and say, Mr. Graves, come go with me. I said, where I'm going? He said, just come go with me. So they opened up the doors and they escorted me up to the front of the building. I'd never been up to the front of the building. So I was nervous. I thought, okay, this is the part where they try to make it seem like you escaped. They kill you, nobody asked the question, because I'm a death row inmate and I've exposed them. So to kill me, nobody's gonna question it. So I say, hey, man, I can't go up there with you. He said, yeah, just come and go with me, man. I said, no, I can't do that. But I'm still walking. By the time we got here, he opened up the door and I see my attorneys, which was a relief for me. But when I get in there, I notice Nicole, she's batting back her tears. But in my mind, it's just some more bad news. Here we go again. But I didn't care. I have my shield and my sword. You gonna kill me or you gonna free me? That's not gonna be a compromise, because they had been trying to get me to take a sentence. They had asked Nicole to ask me, would I plead guilty if they gave me time served? I could go out today. And I said, if that would be the case, then they will be serving me in my cell. They're gonna kill me or they're gonna free me. That's not gonna be a compromise. And so this day, when I got in that room and I'm looking at Nicole batting back tears, she says to me, Anthony, you remember when you told me that God was good? And I said, yeah, but in my mind, what that has to do with anything? Because it's round time to eat and I'm hungry. And she said, well, I just want you to know that God is good because today the state has decided to dismiss all charges against you. And they're not dismissing charges because witnesses have died. They're not dismissing charges because evidence has gotten lost. They're dismissing charges, Mr. Graves, because Kelly Seeger believes in your innocence. And I'm just standing there and this is going over my head because I got my shield and my sword. And it dawned on me. I said, what did you say? She said, they're dismissing all the charges against you. You can go home. And I looked at her and I said, so what do I do now? Because I've been in the building for 18 and a half years. I don't even know my clothes size. And she had brought some clothes. And she said, just put these clothes on, let's go. By this time, the officer come back in, because he had already knew. He said, Ms. Graves, do you want to go get your clothes out of go get your property out of your cell? I said, yeah, I want to do that, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was so discombobulated because now maybe this is a dream. Because I dreamed like this before, only to wake up still behind bars. So maybe this is a dream and I'm scared to embrace it. But he says, just come on, go with me. And so we started walking back down the hall, me and the officer. And then it just finally dawned on me. And this is over with. It's over with. And I get to my cell. He's like, well, what do you want out of here? I said, man, I don't want nothing. Let's just go before y'all change your mind, right? He said, well, you want your property or nothing? I said, yeah, just give me my legal stuff, my pictures, and that's it. And at that time, 6,640 days of living behind those bars, I was finally walking out with everything I owned in a little box at 45 years old. This happened to me when I was 26, a week before my 26th birthday. And today is all coming to an end at the age of 45, October 27, 2010. That's a day I'll never forget because when I got out, I was able to call my mother and let my mother know that we're finally off death row. We're finally free and I'm coming home. It was the first time in 18 years I was able to hug my mother. They took a lot from me, but they gave me back most. And I am now taking the rest by taking this story on the road and letting everybody know why we need to change the death penalty. I'm not a murderer. My mother never raised a murderer. I had no business having an experience with the criminal justice system, particularly capital punishment. But just like it happened to me, everyone that's going to be looking at this documentary, if you live in a country that has the death penalty, it can happen to you. It can happen to you. You're not exempt, whether you believe in it or not. It does not exempt you from its fatal flaws. Ask me and my family. I know.
You filed a grievance against the District Attorney Charles Sebesta with the Texas State Bar Association in June 2015. What did the state of Texas do?
Well, I filed the grievance because initially the statute of limitation had ran out where I couldn't file anything, but they extended it so that I could get up on it and file this grievance. So I filed a grievance with the state bar, and it met the threshold. So they took up the grievance and they represented me. The state represented me now. Isn't that funny? The same state that tried to murder me now is representing me against this prosecutor. So in 2015, the day that we was going to have the hearing, Mr. Sebesta had chosen to have a private hearing. It was his choice. We could have a public hearing or he could have a private hearing. I was hoping he would have a public hearing because of all the things he had said. We wanted him to say it in public. But he chose to have a private hearing because he didn't want anybody to hear all the lies that he had been telling. So we had a private hearing. And we were at this hotel instead of a courtroom because now that we had the private hearing, they had a room at a hotel. And so when I got there, one of my attorneys who represented me in trial was there. And she seen me, Miss Lydia Clay Jackson, and we embraced and we started talking. Well, Mr. Sylvester and his wife was out in the hallway as well. When he seen me and Lydia talking, he made a beeline over there to speak to Lydia while I'm standing there. But he turns his back to me and he's talking with Lydia. Hey, Lydia, how you doing? It's good to see you and everything. And I'm just standing there. So I said to him, hey, Mr. Sylvester. And he turns around. I said, hey, man, no hard feeling. And he looks at my hand. He said, I'll shake your hand. I'll shake your hand. And he shook my hand. And then after that, we went into the hearing and I disbarred his ass. And he could never practice law again. None personal.
And he never said he was sorry.
Not to me. Not to me. But the way he shook my hand, that was his apology. Because he shook it very firmly. And I said, this is the only way this man can apologize. But I needed that because I needed closure. And that's what he gave me. I took his power from him. No longer could he go out and talk about me because he now has to talk about the man whose hand he shook. I took his power and he did not realize that until after he shook my hand. And then I went and disbarred his ass.
Oh, wow. Beyond your personal case, you said, what I never witnessed during my 18.5 years in prison was justice. That's what took you here today to your actual job. Can you tell us why you felt this and why you decided to create this foundation?
The whole time I went through this hell, this 18.5 years of hell, I never seen interacted with one rich person on death row. Nobody with resources were on death row. And that just bothered me that, are you saying that people with no resources are the only people that kills? No rich people, no people with resources does this type of stuff? But I know this is not true. So, and then I witnessed families not knowing how to deal with this stuff. Not knowing how to talk to the attorney. I witnessed attorneys not reaching out to the family, not communicating with their clients. And their clients are getting executed. And I knew that something had to be done. If we're going to get to a place where we can call this a justice system, all of us going to have to be involved that understands this thing. And it's going to take the persons that actually went through it to come out and teach others who are trying to deal with it what it's actually about. And so when I got out, first thing I did is I penned my book, Infinite Hope. And you can go get it off of Amazon, right? But Infinite Hope, because I wanted to tell my story. And I started traveling around the country sharing my story. So I'm a public speaker / motivational speaker because I try to use my story to encourage people, to empower people. And so I did that around the country. I was even in France speaking. And so after that, I started working at a company called Texas Defender Service as a quote unquote investigator. And I started going back to death row with an attorney visiting the clients. And I seen the difference in the client when I was there versus when they were just talking to the attorney. They were more animated, they were more engaged, and they were more willing to share more with me because we had a connection. So I said, wow, that's powerful. But what really got me to where I'm doing the work that I'm doing today is that while I was at TDS, an attorney called me. And he said, hey man, I have this client that we believe is innocent, but he has run out of appeals and they're gonna execute him. We know there's a young woman who knows he's innocent, but she won't talk to us. Would you be willing to go and talk to her? I said, yeah, I've been out 6 months. I said, yeah, I'll be willing to go. So I ride with the investigator down here to Houston, Texas to speak with this young woman. She had been refusing to talk to the attorneys and the investigator for the last 4 years. So when we get to her house and we knock on the door and they open up the door and to see the investigator I was with, the lady come to the door and she was belligerent. She was just, I told y'all I didn't want to talk to y'all, and she just going off on the investigator. And I intervened. I said, excuse me, ma'am. Let me tell you who I am. And if you don't want to talk to us after that, we'll leave. And I told her I had just gotten off of death row. And I told her, I said, ma'am, if you know anything about this man's innocence, please don't let them kill him, because they will kill him. And she opened up the door and let us in. And for the next 2 hours, she gave me the information that saved Alfred Dwayne Brown's life and got him off of death row. And when I realized that it was me and my experience, my lived experience that she resonated with, that gave us the information, I said, wow, if I could train other people who have gone through this, how to now work alongside investigators and criminal defense attorneys to mentor the clients and the family members, maybe we can get to a better result. And so I created my foundation, the Anthony Graves Foundation Peer Navigator Project. And what we do is we train formerly incarcerated men and women how to work in the system alongside criminal defense attorneys to mentor their clients while incarcerated, as well as the family members who know nothing about the system. And it's been game changing. Attorneys that are now working with people with lived experience, it's been a game changer for them to have someone to interface with their client and get out of their client what they couldn't get simply because they have a background, a similar background. It's just been an absolute amazing thing for criminal defense attorneys. And so now I'm trying to put it around the country. We're training men and women now how to work alongside criminal defense attorneys to help get to the best outcome in cases, man. We're building up trust. We're making sure that the communication is there, and we're being most effective with it and efficient, and we're getting to the best outcome. And it's created a career opportunity for what I like to call second chance citizens. And it's making a big difference in their life because it's putting purpose in their life. They're now mentoring someone who's sitting in the seat they once sat in. And it gives them purpose. And it makes them feel like they don't need to go out here and commit crime. They don't need to go out here and do anything bad, because now they're trying to help someone. And it's reducing recidivism. And it's saving the state's money. And so I'm just trying to make people aware of this unique career opportunity so that we can really make a difference and create a just system for all of us. That's how we're going to get to justice. We're going to have to bring in the people who know the system, who can train us and teach us about the flaws of the system so that we can make it better, and so they can be a just system for all of us. That's what I'm doing, and I'm doing it because of what happened to me. I don't want the world to ever forget what they did to me. That's why peer navigators are going to be around even when I'm gone.
That's an incredible achievement to create that. And you have 5 people working under you right now?
I have a whole organization. This is my job. I'm the director of community outreach here at the Public Defender's Office. And then I have my nonprofit, which is the Peer Navigator Project. And I've just dedicated my life to criminal justice reform. So I do it all day, every day. Sometimes I get paid, most time I don't. But I do it because it's needed, man. It's needed, and it saves lives.
How were you able to reconnect with your children so many years after being incarcerated?
Well, number one, I never disconnected, because even while I was on death row, I would have my mother bring my children to me. I still needed to be a parent. I still needed to be a father to my children. And I know that was a lot that I could teach them from what I was going through. So I always had my children in my life. I watched them grow up from behind bars, because I made sure that my mother would always bring them around and keep me engaged with my kids. So when I came home, it was not that difficult. It wasn't awkward. I watched them grow up from behind bars. So the moment I come home, the first thing I was able to do was hug my oldest son. Then I was able to meet with my other 2. And we just been building our relationship since then. Now, was it A seamless transition? No. No. Because what we come to know that they actually did grow up without me. I actually have changed. And we need to get to know each other. And that's still in process, even after now 15 years. I am more a friend than a father because they took that from me. But I'm respected in their life as their father, even though we have a friendship. So the dynamics are weird. But I love my kids, and I know they love me. And yeah, it's a work in progress still today.
Because when you got out of jail, you were a grandfather then.
Yes, as grandfather of 5, two daughters, 3 sons. I'm a grandfather of 5. My oldest son has 1 son, my middle son has 1 son, and my youngest son has 3.
But the day you got out of jail, you were already a grandfather.
Yes,
right?
Yes. The day I got out of jail, I was a grandfather.
You've met a lot of people on death row. You said most of them are guilty. Most of them. It's not true to say that all of them say they are innocent, and some of them love to talk about what they did, and they can be proud of it sometimes. But let's talk about. Do you want to name a few people that you think are innocent and still on death row today?
No. We got such a corrupt system for me to call their name and make our Attorney General target them.
Okay.
So no, I don't trust the system to call names.
Okay. In your book, you said that the last time you met Carter, you didn't ask him if he did those murders.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? What do you want to say about this?
I still don't want to know.
It means you're not sure.
I don't want to know because I never knew him. And I don't want to pass judgment on someone I didn't know. I know he lied on me. And that's how I got put in this situation. But as to his character, who he was, I really didn't know. But if you ask me, did I think he was guilty? Then I'll tell you, no, I don't. I think they killed an innocent man. Why did a guilty man have to lie on an innocent man? Why he was also lying on it? Why he was also lying on himself? It don't make sense. So in my heart of hearts, I believe the state of Texas killed an innocent person. I don't think they ever solved this case. And I've talked to the son of the victim, Mr. Keith Davis. He and I stay in contact now.
Oh, really?
Because we realized what Mr. Sylvester did to both of our families. So we stay in contact. And I've encouraged him. He don't want to do it, but I've encouraged him, man, look into this. Look into this. Because they did not solve anything. I don't believe that man did that. Because he lied too much for a man to be guilty. Look into this case. This is a cold case. Make them reopen this case. And I would still say that today. Anybody's listening, this case needs to be reopened. And we need to find out who really did this, because I'm willing to put my life on the line to say they executed an innocent man for this. And I mean that.
But you said he arrived at the funeral bandaged like a mummy, you said.
When they went and investigated where he said where he got burned at, nobody talked about the big grass fire that they seen on the side of his house. Where he said the lawnmower exploded back on him. Nobody brought that up, but it was there. The evidence was there. They seen the grass burn. They tried to say, oh, he came back and tried to reenact it. So a man burned himself and gonna come back and burn himself again to reenact it. And we dumb enough to believe that. We dumb enough to believe it. Because we want to believe in our law enforcement. We want to believe in the people that we put in charge to keep us safe. And they know that, and they play off of that, and they tell us anything they want to tell us. And we say, rah, rah, rah. Yeah, that's true. But explain to me why y'all never brought up the fact that when that man told y'all that his lawnmower blew back in his face. Y'all went to his home and seen that big grass fire on the side of his home. Nobody brought that up. Nobody brought it up. But people today still don't believe that man was guilty, that knew that man.
Oh, yeah.
Only person that ever thought he was guilty was Sylvester's and the jury.
Wow.
And I don't even know him. But they lied enough for me to know that they didn't solve this case. They just got two young black men who couldn't afford justice. That's the American dream for black people.
That will be the the word to finish. Thank you so much for taking time with me today to share your story to this audience of Death Row Stories. And I think your story needs to be told. You're right about that. And thank you so much for doing this with us.
Oh man, thank you guys for reaching out to me. I appreciate it because, you know, for me, it's not just about telling the story. It's about telling the story to make a difference. And that's what you guys are helping me to do by allowing me to be a part of your platform. So thank you.
I didn't want to say too much about the family who was killed in 1992. Why? Because they had nothing to do with Anthony Graves. That said, I'm glad that Anthony is in touch with one of their members, and I hope that 30 years later, they've been able to grieve, if grieving is even possible. I want to thank Anthony once again for sharing his experience. I highly recommend his book, Infinite Hope. And to be honest, it's the very first time that I hear that Robert Carter might not have done all that. And I think it makes the story even sadder. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment. If you're listening to the podcast, please rate it. It really helps other people find the show. And sometimes I feel that those videos deserve more. What do you think?